Today I want to tell you about a place which any pilot and any aviation enthusiast should put on their bucket list. The Beechcraft Heritage Museum in Tullahoma, Tennessee, about 50 miles southeast of Nashville. And I want to tell you about the best time of year to visit this wonderful place, and that is the Beech Party. Beech as in Beechcraft, which is held here at the Tullahoma Airport each year in October. I was a first-time Beech Party attendee in 2021, and my one big question at the end was, why didn't I do this earlier? Let me show you around and whet your appetite a little bit. Beechcraft is one of the aviation pioneers. It was founded in 1932, but its roots go back further to the mid-1920s when Walter Beech was co-founder of the FlightAware company.
And FlightAware is the predecessor to Beech because Walter Beech started the FlightAware company. He started that company with two other gentlemen, Clyde Cessna and Lloyd Stearman. So you could say that's the first Beechcraft, that's the first Stearman, that's the first Cessna. All three of them all went out on their own and made big names for themselves, of course, but they were in it together for a couple of years. And this is the first FlightAware ever built.
A lot here revolves around Walter Beech and his wife Olive Ann, who ran the company for quite some time after Walter's death. The museum is very well curated and supported by volunteers and many supporting members. It was founded by John Parrish and started as the Staggerwing Club.
John Parrish and his wife owned all of this land, and they have an aerodrome back there, and a whole gaggle of people from the Arnold Engineering Development Center, which is part of Arnold Air Force Base. There's all kinds of scientists and rocket scientists, propulsion scientists, engineers and technicians, like 3,000 of them out of that base, and there's a whole lot of them who are pilots. A whole lot of those are vintage pilots, vintage aircraft pilots. And they love the vintage aircraft, and that's John's love too. So he kept inviting them to his aerodrome. Come fly out of here, and they would, hangar their aircraft even in his hangars. And around that same time in Atlanta, Georgia, a guy named Doug Yarborough bought Big Red. That's the airplane in the far corner of the Chincat hangar where we had lunch. It's the third, serial number 3, of the last 20 Staggerwings ever built. And he thought it would be cool to try and get together with the other 19 of the last 20 so that he could build a network of technical information, resources, friendship, fun, and flying. And John Parrish saw a Staggerwing at one of the Oshkosh fly-ins one time, fell in love with it, got hooked up with Doug Yarborough, who started a Staggerwing club with all these guys. Got many more than just the G model, last 20 Staggerwings, people with all the older models as well. He had that club in Georgia, but they kept getting invited up to the aerodrome with John Parrish. So the Tullahoma bunch, as they were called, hooked up with the Staggerwing Club and they did all the conventions from here. They flew into all the fly-ins together, and it just kept growing and growing. 10 years after the Staggerwing Club was started, it was started in '63, so 1973, the convention was held at the aerodrome right behind us here, and they had as their keynote speaker that convention, Louise Thaden.
Yes, Louise Thaden. That's another name you will hear or see all the time when you're here. Her pilot certificate was signed by none other than Orville Wright. Louise achieved a number of world records, and she won the famous Bendix Trophy race the first year women were allowed to compete. She won and beat all the men flying a, you guessed it, Beechcraft airplane, the beautiful Beech Staggerwing. The Staggerwing marks Walter Beech's departure from the FlightAware company. It is the first real Beechcraft airplane.
He wanted to go to a closed cabin model. He's like, people don't want to fly in this anymore if they're wealthy oil and gas barons, which were an up-and-coming population in the Midwest at that time. He said people are, going to want some more sophisticated luxury comfort. The corporate jet of the day would be a closed cockpit, fast aircraft. And it was going to take a lot of money. These are built with lots and lots and lots of man hours. Wood and fabric aircraft take a lot of man hours, and they were becoming pretty expensive even, to make these. So the people at Curtiss-Wright said no. Clyde Cessna had already gone out of business by then. Of course, he came back. But we will we'll go bankrupt if we try and make an aircraft like that. And Walter Beech was so committed to the idea that he said, I will leave TravelAir and I will start my own company. And he did, Beech Aircraft Company. And his wife, Olive Ann, was the secretary, finance. She ran all the paper pushing kinds of parts of the business. So he left, she left, the lead designer, Ted Wells, left, Louise came, everybody left. And so TravelAir went out of the airplane business and Beech came into being. So these are 3 different versions of the Staggerwing. They only built Staggerwing for 15 years, and they built 785 of them, 19 different variants.
The museum has lots of other treasures, like cutaways showing the inside and the structure of the Staggerwing and the Bonanza. Pretty much every variant of every Beech aircraft ever built is here, even some prototypes which in the end were never brought to the market. And of course the famous Starship, which was ahead of its time in many ways. So much ahead that the FAA had no clue what to do with it when it came time to certify it.
It was way before its time. They were trying to compete, Beechcraft was trying to compete with the Cessna Citation kind of jets. And this is completely composite material. And the FAA just couldn't quite wrap their heads around a plane that was built in an autoclave. And this was supposed to have been considered a fairly light plane that would give jet performance at a propeller airplane price. And with all of the benchmarks that kept changing from the FAA trying to satisfy their requirements about such a new, innovative, over-my-head kind of aircraft, it ended up almost being a heavy aircraft with, jet price and propeller production because it's very heavy and it was very expensive.
What could be better than a real Beechcraft Starship on the exhibit floor? Well, a flying one, of course. And there was one. The Collins avionics system was groundbreaking at the time. 16 CRTs and a flight management system. Commercially, the Starship was a flop, and Beechcraft soon pulled the plug on the program. But it remains one of the truly iconic airplanes still flying today. What else happens at the Beech Party? Well, lots of hangar talking, of course, exhibits from vendors, meals, and even wine tasting. You can learn about the latest in avionics.
For the EIS, one of the things that we were after was percent power, which takes in fuel flow.
Or about engine components.
It's a good educational tool, and that's one of our big pushes here at the museum, is educational programs, and this gives us a super example of it.
And you can hear the latest and greatest from the American Bonanza Society.
Committee, which we're getting ready for a big event next year in September.
The reality is these almost never result in an NTSB report. They never result in an accident.
In some ways, it feels a little bit like Oshkosh, only on a much smaller scale and a lot more personal. You can camp here if the fall temperatures don't scare you, but most people stay in nearby hotels. Lots and lots of beautiful airplanes are out here to drool over. Mostly Beechcraft, of course, but even a lone Cirrus ended up here. And there's some cool flying going on all day long, including some formation flying. I was invited to join as an observer. I still don't think formation flying is for me, but it was a lot of fun to experience it with some people who know what they're doing. There was also a breakfast flyout one morning, just a short hop to nearby Winchester, where the local EAA chapter had set up a pancake breakfast. It was a nice excuse to fly, and my friend Jeff kindly offered a seat in his 1956 V-tail Bonanza for me that morning. It was a great few days here in Tullahoma, my first time here, but I already know I want to come back. I got a deeper understanding of and better appreciation for the history and the roots of Beechcraft and the role the company played in the early days of aviation. If you are in the area or maybe fly over Tennessee on a longer cross-country, stop by sometime. I bet you'll love it. That's it for this time. Thanks for watching, and as always, a special thank you to my supporters on Patreon who help make these videos possible, like Lynn, who most recently joined as a patron. Fly safe, and see you soon in the next video or at the next beach party in Tullahoma.